After the webinar, a friend of mine who is to help organize this movement of finding the destiny or utilizing the mini company idea, glass wall management idea, empowerment. He's asking me what are the ways to recruit the potential companies to join this users group. As I mentioned, this users group is an idea of companies getting together at certain frequency to compare notes so that they maintain the spirit of moving into this direction we're talking about with the idea of the mini company, glass wall management, and continuous improvement, things of that nature. And especially important is the concern about which kind of company to be successful to do this as a group. But he was suggesting possibly the companies used to those people involvement, empowering people, those are the ones, but there may be companies who have no experience or not much knowledge about those ideas. The mini company, again, is about self-management and for each to be the president of his own area of responsibility, like a general manager, and find a destiny within the company. So any organization fit to that kind of a situation. He's thinking that the main criteria, if we can define, may be that top management must be committed to the continuous improvement by developing and empowering people. His question is, are there any other criteria we need to consider? In theory, as I mentioned elsewhere, you can start from any direction, from the top, from the middle, from the bottom, or across the board. Why? Because many companies like an identity of some form within the larger scheme of things happening in the company or in the world, and it applies to anyone. No matter whether the top management is interested or not, every one of us need to find a destiny. So, in theory, anybody should be able to join. But at the beginning, when you form a users group, you want to have a spirit that can be shared among the group so that it's not too chaotic to organize and coordinate activities. So my answer to that question of what way may be the best and what kind of people or the company to be involved, of course it is something that the organizer need to think about because you want to have a high rate of success. And if I think about all my experiences of doing this for the last 35 years or more, the first thing I would question, and especially for top management, is where they see themselves in this world in terms of how the company is managing and the direction and so forth. Roughly speaking, if the company structure is simple and less people, it may not be necessary to join to the users group because the nature of the problem and impact to the society, if I look from that point of view, and therefore from my point of view, what may benefit the most and how the society may benefit the best, I would think the organization may be not so small, but doable. I've done it with like 29 people in one company, but typically 100, 150, 500, 1,000, and hundreds of thousands employees. Because I've done the big company conglomerate around the world, and you can perhaps leverage much better and share the information better. But if it's too big, it's going to be difficult to join the users group. So they may form their own users group. Whatever the case is, if you are in certain location that you can share the information, well, these days there's a virtual way of sharing it. So we may need to discuss and think about how to do that, because that's going to be a very interesting question, so that we go beyond the boundary, but find a way to share the information. Actually, this person is asking me to have my reference so that they can, the company from foreign countries can also join to the users group, or at least on a case-by-case basis. And from my point of view, such an approach would be very beneficial to encourage and see how things can happen in different culture, different setting. As much as users group is meant to have varieties of people, so that they don't actually compete with each other as much in the same industry, but for them to relate to each other, even the background is different, the nature of the business is different, and so on and so forth. So it's very interesting once you start this users group to see that same principle. Like I mentioned, we want to have the common language and common principle. So those things can work. And that is very encouraging for anyone involved in this process, because once you know that, then your thinking horizon would expand. Starting small, but your destiny may be changing, and your flexibility and ability to change is your general management ability, with the idea of the mini company, you being the president of the mini company, your own mini company. So I also say that if the bankers are not understanding it, top management understanding it, you should have your mini company, report, annual report and so forth, used as a resume to find another level, another opportunity. And that is the whole point of going against the law of entropy, the chaos, the Murphy's law, but for you to find a way into the future, your destiny. So the whole idea can be seen complex, but it is fairly simple if you really understand the background of this. It's the empowerment and the self-management and identifying or be the master of your destiny. That's the whole idea. Well, generic idea has to be put in practice with a specific situation. So going back to that question of how to have the companies to join, again, you have to use your pragmatic judgment, the location, possibly, but maybe not necessary because of the virtual world. And we'll find a way. If you have a spirit want to do this, I'm very sure that you can do it. And I'll be happy to be a part of it, because I can afford to do it without traveling as much, which I did over the last 35 years. But if we develop the platform and share ideas and continue to visit in this users group platform, practicing a PDCA, the meeting may be structured in such a manner that you may develop, the organizer may develop certain subject over the 6 months or 1 year or whatever the time period that you may agree to join. So that there should be a facilitator to help doing it, and therefore in this situation, this person that is the organizer to do the same situation. But I would imagine not just in this country that he is living in, but other country people. And in fact, I've been asked to share the webinar and my videos so that they can also join. But for the time being, starting with this webinar that happened recently, and for this person and organization to be a facilitator to make this happen. So there's lots of questions, but the bottom line, back to the users group, is that's the formation of the users group mini company. The users group need to have some kind of mission, understand who are the customers and suppliers and how to manage themselves, and then come up with some kind of a key performance indicator, if there's such a thing, of how to see the progress of the mini company. There may be a survey or something like that happen every meeting and over the 6 months, 1 year, whatever the time frame. So the users group itself becomes the mini company, and the people generally start to share information without going to the top, the organizer, but among themselves. So that situation is, if you understand the idea of the mini company and how it functions, is exactly the same that can happen within each company. So the whole principle again go back to this same or common principles that we can employ doing this. And we have a common language and approach that we can share across the board. So out of those experiences, every step of the way of moving forward will become the hopefully awakening or enlightening experience that you would think, well, this I thought was different, it may not work, but it started to work, and therefore I'm gaining more confidence. As I mentioned, it's not just the logic and the program, but there's a heart in it and the spirit to make things happen. That may make it difficult to understand the nature of this implementation compared to the typical way things happen, like a top-down and tell you what to do and you follow. So you are challenging to the point that everybody's want to get ownership and say and share the ideas and mutually learning the process. So that's the kind of a picture that you want to create to form this organization. You may ask people to join, and out of that, you may select only a small number of people or the company, like a 6 or 8 or maybe 12. I've seen different situations in different countries going through this. But with that idea in the organizer's mind and collecting participating, having people participate in this users group and develop the subject to talk let's say every month, 2 months, whatever the frequency that the mini company or the users group may get together. So there may be 2 ways just looking into the execution of the users group after the soliciting or gaining the support or having people joining the users group. But as an idea, you may want to share how things going to happen. So the idea is a process of PDCA. Every cycle of meeting become a PDCA, CAPD, starting from check. And then you may have a report, what happened. But the idea of each event is, if I can summarize simply, you choose the subject every meeting that you have. So the organizer may need to be fairly understanding of the whole idea and the process of the execution. But you may have some reading material and prior to the meeting, and people may come back with their idea, what they think, and share that idea in a discussion form. Let's say the users group meeting is half a day or 3 hours, 2 hours, depending upon what you think may be feasible, but not too long so that people can do their job and also join this, so that certain period of time, let's call 2 or 3 hours so at the max because of the need for doing other business. In that time, maybe half of it may be devoted to talking about the subject. At the beginning, maybe what is mini company, how do you form it, all that kind of stuff. And then what they have learned and what they think are the problem, and they may try it. So you can talk about it along with the conceptual framework, and then you may have a discussion of what they have done, and each of the mini company or the users group participant may share the experience of what they're going through in each period. And after that, in that process, there's also mutual learning taking place. So the facilitator or the coordinator need to assign some tasks and develop the plans in terms of the subject to talk about, what the content of it, and then go to the specific case example of those. Each of the participants to share where they are, what they are doing, and what hurdles they have, what success they may have had. So this is like a mini company open day in a small scale, in a multiple company setting. So once you have that framework and spending 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever the case may be, depending upon how you execute, you go back and do whatever you learn and practice within each company's setting and connect to what they may be doing in their own organization. Again, the situation will be different for each, but it doesn't matter. The whole idea is for anyone to participate to become the mini company president, to find the destiny and do their best in their own company environment or mini company environment, practice it, and then share the result the next meeting. And then you may discuss another subject to talk about and go through the same cycle over and over. So if you look at it, how this happened is exactly the form of mini company you can do within each organization or within at the top management level too. Top management is the one to orchestrate his own users group. You can say that. Without using the term users group, he may want to practice it. And again, he may want to practice at the top or from the bottom or middle or across the board. So the situation depends on his understanding of the concept, ideas, and the vision, and his spirit that he can feel confident in doing it. So those are the questions, basically. And at the start, you don't know all the answer to it. But the spirit and the direction and the general idea of how to move forward, if you can agree on that, that's the basis of starting the users group. Or that's the same start of starting your own mini company. So again, the concept is the same. The common principle that we want to deploy and common approaches so that we can share. And then we use the common language so that all the ideas that we talk about become more clarified. The language become with the experience, with more meaning in it. And then that's how you start to connect the brain to your heart and the spirit, and then gain confidence in doing it, going over the difficulties. When you do this, obviously, individually, we are to learn how to manage. So that's your specific individual mini company I talk about. And we don't need to talk about the mini me and within each individual's transformation, but I hope people are somewhat prepared that this is something not as a program to do, but rather a process of living with a meaning in what we do and accomplish your vision, finding the destiny, and be the master of destiny. Well, that's good enough. Again, if this was the users meeting setting, after I finish, we can talk about the different, responses or the feedback or questions of that nature. But I'm kind of saying as if to start this users group or forming the users group, the general concept of what I see. I may have dropped a few other issues in there, but given the little time, just the thought that popped up is all I explained, and maybe you can make the most of the benefit that if you can gain from this video, that may be a good start. And as you do it, you may reflect on what is written in my books or through the videos shared or the webinar material available. So that's basically is a platform. It's open to everyone, theoretically speaking, but for the sake of making the progress with the like-minded people, that's the formation of the mini company. And I hope you enjoy this process and find meaningful. The life goes through various experiences. Everything is impermanent. But how we process, find the way into the future, the destiny, and be the master, that's the name of the game. My best wishes for your journey.